Okay. I think we're on, right? Are we rolling? Very good. Very good. It's just getting warmed up a little bit. Welcome, everybody. Workshop number 2. There you are. Okay, there's my monitor. Getting used to this going, you know. Kirby's over here, Steven's over there, Bernie's over there, Bob's over there. We're trying to put this together. I'm out of shot right now, I can tell. Okay. Now I'm in the shot. Hey, welcome everybody. Oh, that camera, right? Okay. Welcome everybody. First thing I'd like to start with today, this is workshop number 2, Academy workshop number 2. And whoever's tuned in, thank you for tuning in. I wanted to do a brief showing you about the website itself. I went on the website this morning and I was looking around in there. And I think we're going to make a few changes as to the accessibility of things. Right now, our marketing manager, Manuel, made a very nice 15-minute, very detailed description of the website. And you can check that out. That's going to be on the site. But I wanted to show you a little bit about this one feature called the chat box. There's a chat box. And see, what you do is, see if I can show you this. First thing you have to do is you have to get inside the live, it's called, you got to go inside My Collections. Once you sign in, I'll just show you this way. See, it's called My Collections, and then up here, you see it. That's My Collections, right? And then you scroll down, and you come to various things. Getting started, the community. If you go into the community, then you can do you can make comments, chat, and so forth with others. Then over here, this is what I wanted to show you. This is the live workshop that we're in right now, right? And see, there we are. I'm not signed into it, but what I wanted to show you was this down here. This little blue guy there clicks you into a chat. And you click it, it opens up, and you can send in a comment. So the way I'd like to use that today and in future workshops is to get, when we're discussing a subject, Kirby's going to be on it and Jordan will be on it too, that you can type in a comment or a question, and then I'll see it live. I'm hearing Bob.
I'll handle it.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, I can see your comment live, and then we'll do that later on. So I just wanted to give you a little thing on that. First thing I'd like to do is just play for you. I'd like to improvise based on the fact that everything comes from improvisation. So I'd like to warm up, improvise, practice a little bit for you. Turn off the sound on this guy. Okay, all right. So that's all warmed up, and I wanted to talk to you to begin with about improvisation. That was a little improvisation for you on our second workshop. And if you noticed on our whiteboard that I put down these couple of things. The first one I wrote about improvisation was everything comes from improvisation. And the idea about that is that, well, I mean, I'm sitting here talking, I'm improvising. You're kind of sitting there or standing there or whatever, and you're checking it out, and you're improvising. You don't have a script. I don't really have a script. I have something in mind that I would like to tell you, but I don't have a script. So I'm improvising, and I think as we go through life, we're improvising. So I'm trying to get the big picture on improvising and then bring it down into what we're involved in, which is music and playing an instrument and improvising notes and melodies. But basically, when you're improvising, my idea of improvising is you're being something. You're being there. You've arrived someplace, and then you're exploring something. You decide, you're making decisions as it goes along. And you know, I've had questions from several of you about improvising, and wondering how you choose a motif. I think there was one exactly about a motif. Let me see. Yeah, let me read this one. This one kind of got me thinking about improvising. This came in recently, today maybe. And this is from Pablo. Pablo from Buenos Aires. I hope you tuned in, Pablo. He says, "Hi, Chick. Thank you for the class. Your advice and opinions are of great help. Thank you. I would like to ask you, if this is possible, what you would like to tell us about developing motifs in our improvised solos. Developing motifs in our improvised solos. And what would be useful to us when thinking about long motives, long melodic lines. And then finally, if you describe to us what makes a motif sound interesting to your ears." All right, well, the questions about, that's a good question about improvising, and the general concept I wanted to present for you to try out, check this out, is what I mentioned here. Let's look at the whiteboard again. Everything comes from improvisation, which means you're deciding to be here and you're deciding to engage in something, whether on your own or with other people, with a band, on stage, off stage, whatever. You've decided to do something. The thing I'd like you to try out is to let yourself be seen. And what I mean by that is that yourself, meaning not just your body and how you dress and how you look, but I mean yourself, meaning your thoughts and your imagination, what you'd like to present or what you'd like to explore, to allow that to be seen. You know, like if you want to do that, if you want to start like that, or whatever you want to do, to allow yourself to be there and first of all, with yourself. Allow yourself to be there with yourself. Let yourself be seen by yourself, and let your imagination go. We'll do some. I get interested, for instance, in the percussive part of the piano. So I'll let myself be seen. There's a little pattern that I like. It's kind of a drum pattern. In 5 notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then any 5 notes, and it makes a pattern. I get interested, for instance, in the percussive part of the piano. So I'll let myself be seen. There's a little pattern that I like. It's kind of a drum pattern. In 5 notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then any 5 notes, and it makes a pattern. 3 in the left hand, 2 in the right hand. Or 3 in the right hand and 2 in the left hand. And then slow it down. Or if you want to make a more melodic line out of it. So that's a motif. You mentioned a motif. Pablo mentioned a motif. Anything can be a motif. Any long thing can be a motif. Actually, it seems to me a motif, I've got to look up the word, it's a small bit. Once you repeat a small bit, I guess you've extracted it and it becomes a motif. So this little thing here, this 5-note thing, becomes a motif. Oh, let me give you an example of a further out motif. Like another conceptual way about thinking about a motif, something you return to, is you play something melodic. And then you contrast that with as another motif, and then you return to So that's another motif, from a melodic phrase to something rougher. So improvisation is like, I'm not thinking about how good or bad or making any judgment on what I just played. Whatever it is, it came out. I'm allowing myself to be seen. I'm allowing my thoughts, in other words, to be seen by you, by anyone. Because I think that's, it frees me up to then be able to let my imagination roll, let it go, come up with what I want to come up with, and then you can test it out that way. I mean, you can then see what the world around you, how it accepts what your imagination is doing, and then you begin to collaborate, and then you begin to collaborate. But back to the board again. Yeah, everything comes from improvisation. These are my two like philosophic thoughts for the day. Everything comes from improvisation, and you let yourself be seen. You try it out. It's like an action that you can do. Think about it. You go, okay, if you're in your own practice room together with yourself, and you're trying something out, allow it to be seen. I mean, that's what I think. Invite somebody in, or at least allow your thoughts to come out and be seen by yourself. It's a way that you can just decide to be free that way. And tell me how it goes with that. Okay, so that's, see what else. I know a lot of you are interested in improvisation in a more fixed way. In other words, when you have a form, you want to improvise over a form, and so that leads us into the subject of composing, because a form is something you create. You create a form, you decide, it's a decision. You say, well, it's going to start here, it's going to go on this long, and then it's going to change. Let's take Miles Davis' example. I was talking to Kirby earlier about the song All Blues, Miles' famous song. This song has a form, and it has a beginning, a middle, and an end. That's the vamp underneath the melody, and so that's a form, and that can be without a beginning, middle, and without an ending. You can just continue to play that. That's just a straight ahead form, but then the song itself has a form, and you fix a form to something, and you go. Is a vamp. Then the top of the tune. Vamp again. And then the top of the tune is there. So that's a form. You can. It's like a game. To me, I was reading my own book. I don't have it here. Kirby, you want to grab the work in progress? It's right on the table there. Yeah. And I remembered that one way of describing composing is that you create games. You create games that can be played. So games have barriers and have a form. I was looking this over today. The last section in the book is called Composing, and the first paragraph says, I think of composing as the act of creating a musical game to play. And I find that gaining skill writing music is like gaining any other skill. Well, it's another thought. The most effective way to improve is just to do it a lot. So in the matter of motifs and improvisation, you can do it without a form, which means you create the form as you go along, which is what I did at the beginning of the workshop. Or you can do it with a form, like a very strict form, like what I just showed you with Miles's tune, All Blues. And it's a matter of creating games. So my suggestion for how to practice that is you have those two methods of doing it. You have the method of no form at the beginning and just put your hands on the instrument and start making sound and then develop something from that and just basically blow, jam, improvise, whatever you want to call it. Let it roll and try to connect it in a way that's pleasing to you. So you can do that. Do that for a while, as long as you like, of course. And then switch over to this other way of improvising, which is choose a form. Either a song that someone else wrote, or what I really highly recommend for all of you, whether you do this naturally or not, even for the non-musicians can do this, is invent a song or invent a form, like just anything. Just invent something. And if you write music, if you know how to put musical notation down, write something. Write your motif down, or at least memorize it. Something that you want to remember, and then improvise on that. Like there was this brought to mind a very simple motif in my children's songs book. I think it's children's song number 4. I invented this motif. And then I just improvised on that, and then found some melodies, and then fixed them by writing them down. Put a form. So go back and forth between improvising with no form and then improvising with some kind of a form. And I don't know, I don't want to keep giving advice because advice is only good if it works for you. But if you're trying to improve as an improviser, the basic thing, keeping in mind to let it all out and let your imagination be free and be what it is, the basic practical advice is just to do it a lot. Just to do it. The more you do it, the more it'll develop, and the more practice makes perfect. Hate to say that, but it's true. Okay. That's improvising. Let's see what I got in store for you. Oh, what I wanted to cover for you today? I wanted to go back over. Future Suite a little bit. Bob, could you put up that? Oh, good. There it is. Boom. Great. On the first workshop, we talked about composing, and I brought out this piece called Future Suite, and it's a brand new piece that I wrote. And it was one of these at-home pieces because I recorded a guide track. Anyway, I went over a workflow. What that is a workflow. There was a purpose for it, which is I wanted to make a piece of music that showed that the future is sweet, because it was during the time, which still exists to a good degree, of where there's so much stress in the world because of this virus. So we're doing all that we can do to handle that, to handle the bad effects of that. And meanwhile, back at the ranch, it means you, we want to create. So my purpose was to create a piece that viewed the future as something positive. So I called it Future Suite, S-W-E-E-T, Future Suite. And that was my purpose, and then I found out who to play was my next workflow on that. I'm going over this briefly. Vinny Caluda on the drums. All of these amazing musicians agreed. Vinny on drums, Bela Fleck on banjo, my sweet wife Gail singing, and Carlitos Del Puerto on the bass. So they all agreed to do it. So I made the basic song, which, let me review it for you and play just a little bit of it once again. By the way, someone wrote in, and this isn't partly in the answer to this, this request by Michelle Kessler. Michelle, thank you for writing in. I got it. The growing arrangement, you called it. And you talked about the drum part. Okay, I'm going to talk about the drum part in a minute. But first of all, I want to do this number 3 again, which is the basic song. And this was what. Let me just show you this briefly. Do we have a? Can we look at this over the piano, or will it show? Let's see. Let's see if this will show up on top of the piano. Yeah, sort of. It sort of shows up. It's okay. You don't have to get in closer than that. It's just this was some of the first pencil notes that I did, which later turned into a fuller arrangement, which I did on Sibelius. So I'm going to play that melody again. That's the basic song, and then I went on and arranged that. So that was number 3. That was the basic song. Then the arrangement grew, and now I'm going to answer Michelle's question, which is specifically. She said you were showing the piano. You were showing at the piano who would play what, and in particular the drums part. However, you were playing it at the piano. Yeah, I was playing this next part here. This next part here, which was Now, what I meant by that, this whole new section. Which I think, by the way, this is posted up on the. This is posted up on the.
Yeah, it is posted.
Yeah. Do you know it's posted in the live workshop part?
You know, I don't know exactly.
Okay.
I know it is posted. Yes.
You can find it there, and you can also find the the audio recording of Future Suite. And what I do with the drums is the way we work with drummers of the kind that, like Vinny, like Dave Weckl, like Brian Blade, well, going back even further, like Roy Haynes, like Philly Joe Jones, and like the great congueros of Cuba and Puerto Rico and the great drummers of the world. Basically, the drummers have aside from classical percussion sections, which read their music a lot, are show bands where the drummer has to play the breaks and so forth. But mostly improvising drummers, I leave them to create their part and just give instructions. So what this little vamp was a vamp over which the drums play a solo, and you can hear that on the audio. Just check out the audio of Future Suite. And this whole section that I wrote is devoted to a background for the drummer, for Vinny. That was the first one. And he's blowing. And then this whole section is for him. And then then it goes to 3/4, and it go back at and he blows over that and so forth. And so that's how the drums work. And usually what I do, in fact, most of the time what I do for drummers, to give them something to follow, let me show you this on this main camera here. You can take that off the screen now, Bob. Let me see, over here.
That's it.
You see, that's the, this way. Yeah. There you go. See, that's the vocal part, the lead line, and the piano part. And really, that's all I wrote. I didn't write a bass part because the bass part is embedded in the left hand or the bass clef of the piano part. And so with this, the drummer has all the information that he needs to then create his part. See, I'll go to the next section here. Wait a minute. Oops. Oh, I'm getting it. There. Now you can see, there it is, starting at, yeah, letter D1. Starting at D1, you can see that's the part I played at D1. And that's what Vinny improvised over. And it goes on, it continues to the end and so forth. There's more to it. So that's fine, just to give you an idea. You guys have this chart up on the website. You can view it and you can listen to the audio and piece that together. And you know, I'm gonna check to see now if you've been taking advantage of the chat box. Now, I mentioned the chat box. You can write in questions on the chat box, and I'll see them here. So about Future Suite, if you want. All right. And I think, oh, one other thing on Future Suite that I want to cover before we move on to some Q&A. I want to do some questions and answers with you guys. But I was asked to show how the written music evolved on Future Suite. So I'm just going to show you that briefly. This chart that I just showed you was the was the final score. It's a pretty simple score, a 3-stave score with the lead line plus a piano line, and the bass part played off the piano bottom, and Gail sang the melody on the top line. Bela read from this same part too, Bela Fleck. But this was the notations that I made on the first. This was my first jottings on Future Suite. Do I have it the right way too? Yeah. There you go. Just some pencil jottings and just a lead line, a couple of voicing notes, and some chord changes. All right. And then, let's see what else I got on Future Suite. Oh, this is interesting. At some point, I'm going to be able to put my my laptop up on the screen for you to see a workflow that I do with composing. But this was the MIDI file. I'm going to use some technical terms here, guys. This was the MIDI file that I printed out from the piano guide track in Logic. This was also early on in the composing cycle. That's the MIDI track that and that comes right from the Logic score page, right? Then the only other piece of the puzzle that I want to show you is these two little pieces. One was when I was conceiving the drum solo. This is the part I jotted out for the drum solo before I put it up on Sibelius. I just jotted that out in pencil. Because sometimes when an idea comes to me quickly, I don't have time to do anything else but jot it down. Otherwise, otherwise it's gone. It's just like boom, it goes. And the only other note that I have is I wanted a coda that was a little bit different from the beginning of the song. Like at the beginning of the song, we have, let's see. Oh, here it is. At the beginning of the song, we had this phrase here. It went, no. Right, and at the end of the song, I wrote out this little note, jotted it out quickly because I wanted a different, I wanted a slightly variation to that, so I wrote. So that was all the scribbles that went down to make Future Suite. At some point, Future Suite will be released, and I'll let you know when it is, because we have a video that goes along with it that is being edited now, and you'll see when the full production gets done. Okay, so that's it on Future Suite. Let's go on to answering some questions. There's a couple other questions that Jordan routed to me this morning I want to go over. Actually, I covered one already. I talked to Pablo. I hope Pablo, I hope you got that from Buenos Aires, and Michelle Kessler from Geneva. I hope you got that, and that covered what you were asking. I'm still looking at the chat box here to see if anyone is taking advantage of it. Okay,
I have an interesting one here, Chick.
Mariah Parker wrote in.
That's the one, yeah. That's
Okay, all right. I'll check that in a moment. I've got it right here.
good, good.
But all right, Pablo, thank you. Let me know how that answer was for you. Michelle, thank you on Future Suite. Now, there's one more I want to cover here from Brian Mueller from Tennessee, USA. He says, hi, I'm a longtime fan. I've been listening to Mr. Career. Thank you for calling me Mr. Career. Music since I first discovered jazz 20 years ago. I would love to know how he recommends or approaches internalizing new or unfamiliar tunes. Internalizing new or unfamiliar tunes. I guess, Brian, that you're using the term internalize to mean memorize or understand or know it well. So there's a little couple of concepts I want to give you on that for you to think with, see if this works for you, because it could help you sort out how you come around to what you call internalizing. You know, if I looked inside to see internally what's happening here, I'd find like some bones and organs and kind of blood flowing around. So I'm assuming that internalizing you mean in you, in your ability to understand, in the mind and so forth. What I'd like to give you as a concept for that is that I've come across in the music scene for a long time. It's very, very common nomenclature, very, very common wording to say when you're learning a piece of music to memorize it. So you see, okay, so you're reading the music, and now you want to memorize it. Well, let's look at those two terms real quickly and simply. Reading is just that's real. Reading is just reading. You see notes on the page, and I just wrote this piece. I was going to play it for you to this workshop or the next, but it starts out with a left hand that goes like this. Now I'm reading. Now, so reading is a guide. You could be reading words, you know. Now, memorization is a tricky thing to talk about. Let's talk about memorization. When you use your memory, you're kind of, to me, using your memory is similar to having a cheat sheet. In other words, if I'm looking at this hard sheet and I'm reading this, now if I'm going to memorize it, and if I'm really using my memory, then I've got a mental picture of this or of some way, and I've got a memory of it. Memory means something you did already, right? Or you saw. Memory. See? And that's a really convoluted way. So let's put because memory is the same as reading, except you're reading from your mind and your memory. So rather than reading, rather than memory, let's use another concept for internalizing, which is knowing. Just knowing. You know, when you know something, you don't have to memorize it because you know it. You know your name, right? You know where you live, I'm assuming, and you know your phone number, and you know a lot of things. They're not really memorized. You just know them. Well, how do you get to know something? How do you get to know how to walk, or how to swim, or how to do anything really, without thinking? See, memory is thinking. That's another way to think about it. Memory is thinking. You have to think about it. Now, thinking is a machine. It takes some energy to do that. You're thinking. So if you're at the piano or whatever instrument playing, and you're playing by memory, which literally means you're thinking about reading from your mind, then you're using some superfluous energy that you don't really need. You don't need that, right? What you need to do is you need to know the piece. You need to I think that's what you mean by internalizing. I'm assuming that that's what you mean by internalizing. And if you use the chat, you could tell me if that's what you're thinking about, Brian. But we'll. To know. Okay. So the way you get to know or internalize, the way I do it, is that I get familiar with it enough so that I start to know it. You know, I've been working on a Mozart piano concerto for years. Kirby hears me practice it every time I come in here, because there's a lot of notes, and I can read the notes, but I would like to know the notes so that I don't have to think about them, right? So the opening phrase is. Right? I think I know that by now. I've practiced it for long enough. I first played this in 2006 with a chamber orchestra around Europe. But that's how I do it. It's a number of times over a piece. You go over and over it. With the music, and then you put the music aside and hear it, like sing it in your mind. And if you still don't have it, go back to the music and drill it some more. Another way to break it down when you're trying to know a piece, get to know a piece, is you can do it in sections. Do it like that. That's one short section. I played that section over and over again. You get to know every little bit of it. That's a nice line, right? Mozart's melodies are incredible. So you go it over and over and over it until it's really yours, and perform it and play it. And I don't know another way around that. It's a number of times over, and it's drilling, and you get so that you're not memorizing it. You're not like referring to the music or referring to a memory of it. Now you know it, and now you don't have to think when you play. You can just play, and that's our goal. That's really our goal as musicians. It's our goal as human beings, is to not have to memorize life. You just go and you live life. And that was what I meant at the beginning, is that everything comes from improvisation. And let yourself be seen, let yourself be, and so on. So that's a long answer to a short question. All right, I think from that's. There you go, Brian. Okay, that's all the written questions I have here. Now let me, before we have some students, academy members lined up to come online. We're not going to do that quite yet, because I want to see if we have any other. No one's using the chat box. Okay, maybe you don't know how to use it. All right, this is Mariah Parker's question. I'm going to answer Mariah Parker.
Great.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah, she's the only one that wrote in. Okay, she asks, can you say something about using parallel motion over pedal point floating? Parallel motion over pedal point floating. I'm not sure I understand that. There's a lot of use of contrary motion in the composition. Oh, you mean Future Suite. as parallel motion. Am curious about how your classical studies inform your writing sensibility. Well, it's two different questions. I'm not sure, Mariah, that I understand what you mean by parallel motion. You mean things going in the same direction? There's a lot of contrary motion in the composition, and I think you mean future suite. If you're there, go on chat and let me know. Otherwise, I don't know if I'm answering your question correctly. There's a lot of use of contrary motion. Let me answer the other question. I'm curious how much your classical studies inform your writing sensibilities. Well, quite a lot, actually, in the sense that the classical musicians, the musicians we call classical musicians, unlike the jazz musicians, I'm using those terms lightly with salt added. Is that how you say it? What's the phrase I'm looking for?
Loosely?
Huh?
Loosely?
Loosely is good, one good way to say it, yeah. Yeah, the classical musicians and composers especially, they took the time to make games, which is write compositions down for other musicians to play. So they would make the game. Bach, Mozart, all the ones we love. Debussy, Ravel, and then also the jazz composers, Duke Ellington, Thelonious Monk, Horace Silver. I think they used written music. The jazz musicians tend to use less written music, but they do fix a song and they do fix an arrangement. And some get quite elaborate about it, like four of my favorite orchestral pieces of music. Actually, four of my favorite recordings of all time are the Gil Evans, Miles Davis recordings that were done in the 50s. And Gil Evans there, he used a palette of a large orchestra. Well, brass and reeds mainly. He didn't use violin. He didn't use strings in that. So the classical composers, they wrote things, they fixed things, and they wrote things down. And that is the tradition that that I learned, that I take from that way of organizing music, because I enjoy working with ensembles. Even a duet, actually. Like when I work with Bela Fleck as a duet, I've done duets with Stanley Clarke as well, where we write our music down to learn it first. So we send each other music. So we do use written music, but then once we understand the piece, we don't need the sheet music anymore. But the classical musicians and composers have used their writing styles to make longer compositions. And that, for instance, is part of what I've done with Future Suite. Future Suite is it's a S-W-E-E-T, of the sweetness of the future, but it's also a S-U-I-T-E suite, meaning that it's built in sections. It's actually got what, I use a fancy term, it's got a recapitulation, which means that the melody in the beginning comes back in some form at the end. It recaps. We now use it recap. Yeah, I took a lot of, I learned a lot from the classical composers. I still do. I'm currently involved in finishing up a trombone concerto for the great trombonist for the New York Philharmonic, Joe Alessi. And he invited me to write this concerto for him and the New York Philharmonic. And when I understood that I had this great orchestra with these amazing musicians and organization to write this musical game for, which I was not given any instruction what to do, except I got together with Joe and we talked about it a little bit, but basically I composed what I what I like to compose without any restrictions. And knowing that I had that orchestra to work with, I started studying, once again, the classical composers and how they orchestrated. And I went to mainly, actually, I went to mainly my biggest inspirations orchestrationally and musically also, which is Bela Bartok and his three piano concerti, his concerto for orchestra, and all his orchestral works. Stravinsky has a huge body of orchestral work that is just some of the most imaginative music I know, and very interesting to study in terms of the combining of sounds. That's what orchestration is, the combining of sounds, where you put the woodwinds together with the strings, together with the brass, together with the percussion, and so forth. Those were my main go-tos, Stravinsky and Bartok. I also pay a lot of attention to Mozart's orchestral writing. His piano concerti, especially, are written so beautifully, and the way he uses the chamber orchestra. He doesn't use a lot of brass. He'll use a trumpet, or sometimes he'll use some woodwinds and strings mainly, and a timpani. So yeah, that's what. Oh, it's over here. That's what I do. Oh, good. Mariah wrote. Yes, you were talking about Future Suite. Well, I hope I answered your question. I don't get quite. We can talk about it sometime. I don't quite get the parallel motion over pedal point. I know what a pedal point is. In other words, the pedal point is holding the note at the bottom, right? But that only lasted for 4 bars. But then it changes here. So, but I do like pedal points. How could you not like a pedal point? Thanks, Mariah. Oh, she wrote, you said, have been studying your chart for Future Suite and love the complexity in your writing. Oh, okay. Can see good voice leading from your classical in your writing. See, I'm not sure what voice leading means. I know that's a term. I guess it means the way voices move around. Good voice leading. Thank you. Have been reading through the children's songs I write for my quintet. Oh, you have a quintet, so I'm especially interested in. Was hearing some of your improv this morning. Wounded like there was this, oh, sounded, must be sounded like there was this modal thing happening that possibly built on major scale, half point higher than pedal. Oh, okay. Let me just say something about that. That's great, and I really appreciate your interest. But that leads me into saying something interesting to me, which is that, and it's something that I keep referring back to. It was something we covered on the first workshop, which is the nomenclature that. Oh, I remember how I worded it. It was theory and doing it. Like you have the theory of music, which is basically words and concepts. It's like trying to state what the form is, or what to break it down in words, like you were doing here. It probably makes great sense what you said. It sounded like there was this modal thing. You'd have to know what modal means, and happening that possibly built on major scale. That's another technical term, a major scale, half point higher than pedal. So there's a pedal, that's another word. This is nomenclature. It's all agreed upon nomenclature, and it's if you understand the words, then you kind of get what's taught. But what it is it really is theory. It really is theory. And what I want to say about theory and the way you think about music is that is that we all have different ways of thinking about music, like every musician and should have. And so when you listen to someone else's theory, like you can get lots of books on the theory of music. So many of the composers have written books stating their theories. I've read some of them. I've looked into some of them. I usually don't get too far in reading someone's theory because I realize that it's their theory, and I like to discuss music sometimes, but the purpose of the theory is to make some good music, and that's the practical side of things. So all I'm trying to say is there are different ways to think about it. Like that improvisation that I did had no thought at all. I don't even remember what I did. And I don't particularly care to remember, although we have a recording of it. We're going to play it on the next, each workshop is being recorded and will be up for you to look at again, or those who couldn't tune in today can look again at another time. But anyway, that's what I think about theory. The purpose of the theory is to. But you're right. We're trying to communicate in words, and half step higher than the pedal. So there's a pedal, and you mean maybe you mean that, because the pedal is a G, and a G major scale is, and then this is an A flat major scale. Maybe that's what you meant. Yeah, I bet that's what you meant. It's just a sound. You could put any sound on top of any sound. Put a D major scale on top of G. That's another sound. Or you put, choose a key, a D flat major. When some note gets fixed, like that, you can do anything you want in between, and that's how you know that it's fixed, because it doesn't move while other things are moving around. This thing of A flat over G is a particular sound that I like because it's kind of flamenco. So it's a preference, it's a sound, it's a culture, it's a feel. Okay, Mariah, thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope that helps. And good luck with your quintet and all of your music, and we'll be in touch. Kirby, do we have someone that we can bring in and talk to?
Sure, we're going to bring in Yayoi Ikawa.
Let me get my headphones on here.
I have a little information on her right here.
Who is it?
Yayoi Ikawa.
Yayoi.
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to bring in Yayoi. There's Yayoi. I can see you. Hey, hello. Thank you for joining us. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you for having me.
Oh yeah. And you're let me just see. You're in Brooklyn right now?
Yes, yeah, I am.
Okay. You look healthy?
Yes, I am. Yes. More sleep.
Yeah, good. Yeah, more sleep. So if you don't mind, I'm going to read your question, and then we can talk more.
It's kind of related to what Mariah said.
Okay. Yayoi says, flow in music. Whatever instruments Chick plays, or whether playing written music or improvisation, it's amazing that he has a great flow and makes everything musical. How does he do that? How does your classical music practice inspire your improvisation? What's your main goal playing classical music? How do you merge two worlds between written music and improvisation? Well, that's a lot of questions.
Two questions.
Yeah, two questions. Okay, which one would you like to talk about?
Well, let's do the flow because the classical thing we just talked about it. So
Okay.
yeah. So for the flow, like like I stumble a lot, and like I try to like let go of the thought and keep going, but then the thoughts come in, and my time gets messed up, my fingering gets messed up, and yeah. So I was just wondering what's the approach to just improvise and just let go, and if you think about try to build a story or like organize idea during the improvisation.
I see. Yeah, yeah. Well, this is, everybody has the same problem and I see that the basic thing on this, aside from technical things, aside from the technical parts of it, the spiritual part and the mental part of it is, I guess, a common word that we use is focus, right? You try to, when we're practicing or when we're playing, the idea is that is what we're doing then at that moment, and so there has to be some kind of control or discipline that we put on ourselves to only do that and not be thinking about other things. Now, I know that that's easier said than done. I understand that.
Yeah.
But that is the goal, right?
Yes, and also like how can my improvisation communicate to other people or to myself, rather than just bunch of notes and like just sound and the end. How can I like try to tell something in the improvisation?
Well, let me point. I understand that. Let me point out what I began today's workshop with. There were two statements. Let me just. Can we flash it on without interrupting the picture? If not, I'll just read it. If we can't, let me just read it. So I mentioned earlier on that everything comes from improvisation, and the point about improvisation is that even when you decide to play a piece of classical music, like you do, what's a favorite piece of yours that you practice that you like?
I was just working on Chopin.
Chopin.
Yeah, the prelude.
The which?
Prelude.
Prelude.
Yes.
So for instance, when you decide to play a Chopin prelude,
Yeah.
that moment of decision is an improvisation, because
Right.
nobody forced you, right? You decided on your own. I'm
Yeah.
assuming. Yes, you decided on your own. So that decision that you made, that was an improvisation. You said, well, I'm going to play a Chopin prelude, right?
Right. That decision is improvised. Yes.
So the decision was an improvisation, is what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
And now what we're doing now is an improvisation.
Right. That's
Right. You're saying what you think, and I'm answering you and listening, and I'm saying what I think, and it's going back and forth, and we don't have a script.
Right. Right.
So it's an improvisation.
Yes.
We're improvising,
That is
right?
Yeah.
Are you thinking about something else while we're improvising?
No, I'm trying to respond, listen, and
Oh, good.
yeah.
I can feel that you're right there, and that we're just talking. So
Right.
this is a good example of an improvisation, not using instruments, but talking.
Yeah. So when you maybe that's my another question, but when
Oh, wait,
you,
let's not move from this question yet, because this is a good question. So I'm trying to come to a point, because this is the point is that when you're playing, the only one that will create the thing that's making this a good improvisation, this communication, is that you're very interested, and I'm very interested. We're both interested, right? Nobody forced you to be interested, and nobody forced me to be interested. I'm
Right.
just being interested because I think this is interesting to speak with you and see if we can find something out, you know? So if you apply that same idea to your practicing, when you play music, when you play a sound, you become interested.
Yeah.
You become interested in your own sound. Play me some things, anything you want to play for like a minute or so, and become very interested in what you're playing.
Yeah, but
That's,
that was,
that's
yeah.
very nice. Now let me ask you a question. That's very nice, Yayo. I enjoyed that very much. Now, it seemed to me like you were very interested in what you were playing.
I'm always interested in. Yeah. Yeah, but like well, so okay. So you told in one workshop you were talking about comping and
Comping, yeah.
try to stick to the idea. That's something that I thought about it, and I was thinking that like if I improvise like this, how
You
can
were you were thinking what?
I was thinking like sticking to idea
Yeah,
in the comping, and I
yeah.
was wondering if that applies to improvisation too. Like if I find that sweet spot and just stick to it rather than going all over like what I just did.
You know, Yayoi, all of those kind of things are completely the artist's choice. There's no rules to things like that. There just really aren't. As a matter of fact, that is the world of each individual artist has his own imagination. And that is what you have to let yourself be seen. When I said earlier, everything comes from improvisation. You let yourself be seen. You let your own, like you just did, it seemed to me. Seemed to me that you let yourself be seen. And you played what you liked. And that was an improvisation, is what I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was
Yes.
totally improvised. Yeah.
Yeah, wonderful. See, so that's the answer to any kind of choice. The choice is yours. Whether you want to stick to one motif or you want to do this. But maybe one thing you might try conceptually is what I mentioned earlier on is there can be, when you create a game,
Yeah.
there's always a purpose to a game. Like if you play football, the purpose is to get more points than the other team, right?
Yeah.
Same with baseball. You're going to want to get more points. There's a purpose, you know, and there are rules, there are purpose.
Right.
So if you think more about purpose, of like having a purpose, then you'll see what kind of music it should be. Like one purpose would be you have a gig with certain musicians, and
Right.
that's got a purpose, and then you've got maybe a song that you're writing on your own that you would like to put on your recording, and that's got a purpose.
Right.
And each time there's a purpose, then that will dictate what kind of motif or what kind of emotion that you want to create. Because
Yeah,
if you, I was going to say that if you, as soon as you create a motif or start a rhythm, especially, it creates a mood, right? So if I go. So that's a mood, right? So that's a mood. But if I did like this. It's a different mood.
right. Yeah, so you said
It was the same tempo, but different mood. So you can also choose your direction and your motif by emotion, too. You can say, well, what kind of an effect do I want to create? And that ties into what you said before of how to communicate. Because when you communicate whatever you decide to communicate. So that's how you build a story. When you tell the story, you say you want to tell the story to start like this, and then you want to go here, and then you want to do like that, and then you want to go over here. And it's all the artist's choice.
yeah, is that how you compose, like, you know, like you told me the stage? So first there is a purpose of
The
writing
purpose,
song,
yes,
and
first
then
the
like
purpose.
people, and then like you write a
That,
song.
that's right, that's
Do
right,
you
yeah.
improvise that way to get a song out of it? Is that
Well,
your
it depends on the type of improvisation, but so how do you feel about this idea of you being interested in your own playing? You can use that?
Yeah, I mean, like, it's been, you know, like, you told, you said, you know, like I was practicing for gig, yes, but now there's no gig. So I am trying to find myself, like, you know, like, I don't know who I am anymore, you know, like, so
Oh, well, now you need a purpose. See, that's
yeah,
perfect.
yeah,
You
so
just
that
make a
has been
purpose. You
practice, yeah,
decide, you make a decision about what you would like to create in the future, and don't wait for someone to call you on the phone.
right, right. So
Yeah, just
yeah,
start making it, and that will be your creation, and I'm sure you'll find a place to put it.
so that can be your practice routine, my
Practice, your
well.
practice, or your composition, or your creation, or whatever. You put it. You have to. Future suite means you put a future. So in order for you to, don't wait for the future for somebody else to tell you what is the future.
Yeah.
So you go make the future.
So like you did melodious or like so you do create different moods. That could be how I can approach like what I'm feeling musically.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay. So great. It's great talking to you.
Thank you.
And good luck with everything.
Thank you.
And stay well in Brooklyn.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Great talking.
Okay, you're welcome. Yes. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet
you. Okay, Yayoi. Great. Do we have someone else?
Yes, we have Brendan. He's right up there, Brendan Davis.
Brendan. Yeah. Okay, let's say hello to Brendan.
From Michigan.
Would you, oh, let me get a little drink here.
Sure,
Oh,
I can get something.
no, I've got it here. I just don't want to.
Okay.
This is Brendan.
Hello.
Hey, can you
I'm
hear
with you
me?
on the drink. Yes.
Oh,
I can hear
good.
you quite well.
Nice to meet you, man. I'm going to adjust my volume here. Where are you, Brendan?
I'm in Michigan.
What part?
Southfield. It's like 10 minutes from Detroit in Southfield, Michigan.
Oh, yeah. I like Detroit. A lot of music from Detroit.
Absolutely.
My wife is from Jackson.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like middle Michigan or up north, kind of?
Somewhere in Michigan.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's right, because you brought her down when you were at Hill. Maybe about 5 or 6 years ago.
That was with Herbie.
Yeah, Herbie, uh-huh.
I remember that concert because I have a photograph of me and Gail on stage, and that was the first time that Gail ever sat in with me and Herbie together. Actually, that was the first singer that Herbie and I ever invited up to our duet, and that was an improvisation. Were you there that night?
I was. I enjoyed that concert. Thoroughly
Wow,
enjoyed it.
cool, very cool. So let me we can get into whatever you want, Brendan. But I'm just gonna read what you wrote, if you don't mind. I was curious how you keep up with the many repertoire and bands that you work with, and also how do you know once you've finished a composition that it's ready? Wow, two completely different questions. What would you like to cover, really?
Probably the second one.
Yeah, all right. How do you know that you finished the composition? You know, that's a good point. How do you know you finished it? Because as musicians and artists, I know this happens to me as I'm a doodler. I like to draw. I use colored pencils and different kind of pastels and stuff. And so when I'm drawing something, it's like sometimes I'll go whoop, and I'll go, wow, that's kind of nice. Should I put something else on that or not?
Right.
Right? It's that kind of
Exactly.
thing, isn't it? It's like you make something and you wonder whether you should continue to do it or not. You know, and I don't know. You know, let's see. How do I know I finished the composition? I just thought of a mechanical thing. Was one way I know that I've finished the composition is when I'm fulfilling a commitment. I'm looking at the monitor rather than right. I keep looking at the monitor because I'm looking at you on the monitor. Okay, I'll try and look at the camera. One of the ways I know that I've finished a composition is when I have an agreement to have written something that lasts a certain amount of time, or I'm making a recording and I know that we've only got a certain amount of time to fix it into. So timing occasionally is a limiting factor to knowing when that's it. Like, right? There's another time-wise limiting factor which has got to do with just the economics of life, which is, you know, you got certain things you have to do, and so you're writing, and you got to be there, and you got to do that, and you got to do these other things, so that composition's done, because you got to go. That's a practical consideration, because when you take away those kind of constraints, and you're only thinking about, well, you have, like, if you have unlimited freedom to write as long as you want, then you really have to decide yourself, should it be this big, or that big, or that big, or that big, and that's just a totally personal decision. What's your problem? What's your problem in that? Do you have a problem with it?
Well, it's just about like, so like I have to write this piece for this new group, and I don't know if this like applies to being stuck, but I think I'm just trying to figure out, like, I'm not sure if I should add something else or if it's just like totally finished. And I mean, this can apply like to multiple pieces. And so like, I know like, since you're a real, you know, prolific composer, I was just wondering if you ever kind of ran into those, roadblocks and like how you kind of got out of them.
One thing I do, like if you're writing for a band,
Yeah.
and do you know who's in the band?
Kind of. It's like a world music group. I've never done world music, or not even world music. That's like kind of a weird term to say, but it's like yeah, 2 violins. There's a flute. There's a person that's playing the drum where you sit down and play it. I think it's the how you say it, cajon.
The cajon.
Cajon.
Cajon. Yeah.
And there's an acoustic bass player, and I'll probably be playing piano.
Yeah.
So it's like a different setup than I'm used to writing for.
But do you know these people?
I know some of them. I don't know all of them.
Okay. So the reason why I'm asking that is because that could be a factor in knowing what to write. Like what I do. I'm very lucky and fortunate to most of the time I know the musicians I'm writing for. Like I'm writing a trombone concerto for the New York Philharmonic. I know a little bit about that orchestra, so I know who I'm writing for. With my smaller bands, when I write music for my trio with Brian Blade and Christian McBride, I know who I'm writing for. If I'm going out on tour with Herbie, like you saw that concert, I know who I'm playing with. So if you know the who that's involved, if you know the players, to me that's a way that's a real solid goal for me, because my intention as a composer is to have those players love what they're playing and get into it and put themselves into it. And also I know that most musicians, I know the guys that I play with, they like to be challenged. So if I write some tricky stuff, they're going to enjoy that. They're going to say, "Oh, wow, okay, well, let's see how to do this," because they like to be challenged, because they're very virtuosic. So if you play, depending on who you're playing with, or if you're writing for some kids that are just learning, then you have to think, well, what will make them sound good? To me, I think that's one of the things that I do as a composer and an arranger. I'm trying to think how to make that ensemble or that person that I'm working with sound good.
That makes a lot of sense.
What do you think about that?
Thank you. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I haven't thought about it that way. I was more so kind of thinking of like what you mentioned before, just about like establishing a mood, but maybe I think starting with like what you suggested, like thinking about like the players and their different strengths and weaknesses, I think will probably better inform what I'm trying to create.
Yeah, that's one way. And then you have also, in terms of your question about when do you know a composition is finished, I mean, that's real wide open. I mean, if you notice, you can end the composition a lot of different ways. You can, oh, hello, how you doing? Is that a gig?
I don't know. Probably not. I think it's a telemarketer.
That's okay,
sorry about
man.
that.
So you don't need to answer that?
I don't know.
Okay,
a
all
lot
right.
of times it's just spam calls.
All right. So you wanna know who you're writing for, and then you can end the composition. But here's a concept to try to grab onto. One of the basic things we do as musicians, it's actually one of the highest purposes in life, is to create an effect. Right? So you're trying to create an effect. You're a composer. You're sitting there going, I'm going to create this effect. You're writing these notes down. And you can envision the effect. Right? In other words, if you're writing for these violin players, you can write this phrase for the violin players, and you can put yourself in there, be them, and see what they're going to feel like playing that phrase.
I see. Okay.
You see? And
Yeah.
you can do that with every musician. You can see what are they going to feel like, what effect are you going to be creating, And then as a whole of a composition, what effect is that composition going to create on the band itself and on the people who listen? And that's your that's your imagination. Like, do you want to create a startling effect, or do you want to create a lyrical effect, or do you want to create, what kind of an effect do you want to create? If you think in terms of effects, then and see how it's just not a bunch of notes. See, these notes are going to be performed by live people, and they're going to be playing it with some kind of emotion that the composer, in the melodies that he's writing, kind of can dictate the emotion depending on what the melody is. You see, if you know one of the tempos that I like is a fast tempo. I just like it because it creates a certain emotion, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's like, yeah, okay, let's go. It's an emotion, right? I have a fond memory of playing a concert with my newly formed electric band. It was just a trio back in the 80s with Dave Weckl and John Patitucci. We played at the Queen Mary Jazz Festival, and we opened up to Miles Davis. And Miles had just come back on the scene again, and I had played with him earlier. So after the concert was over, I went into Miles's dressing room, and we were saying hello, and